to The Conscious Creative from MuseWorks Audio. Brittney Chantele uses a combination of art and action to inspire people to create positive change. Here's our conversation. Welcome to The Conscious Creative.
Thank you.
The first question I want to ask you about is, I don't know much about Pittsburgh from a cultural standpoint, and I would love to hear about what's going on in the city, specifically One Hood Media, which is a group that you're a part of, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I would love to hear, about the city as a whole, but also specifically about One Hood would be really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love Pittsburgh. It's where, I grew up. I didn't grow up inside the city, but I grew up right outside the city. But I do have to keep it real and funky and fresh with you, that, Pittsburgh isn't all cracked up to what it's said to be. And the reason why I say that is because we were actually voted the worst city in the United States for Black women specifically, which says a lot. It says a lot about healthcare, like how our city, leads in healthcare. I mean, we have some of the best universities surrounding healthcare, some of the best hospitals. The Pittsburgh Children's Hospital specifically is one that's often talked about, on the national scale. But yeah, we're voted the worst city for Black women.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but what is that based off of? Do you know like what specifically where it struggles?
Yeah, it's based on several factors. I think we can get really, really deep into it, but on surface level, it's around equity, it's around housing, it's around jobs, it's around healthcare, racism, um, um, opportunities in general, not just, with jobs, but, for artists. And yeah, so I think, it's a very, layered thing. But, it's something to, be real about. I think, because we have a Google hub here. They have they gentrified a portion of the neighborhood, and Google's offices are there. Same thing with Duolingo. They're one of their headquarters is here. And you know, as an example, I was in California, and there was a big Duolingo billboard. I think it's actually very easy to find if you Google it, because a lot of people were taking pictures of it and were like, "What?" Duolingo was essentially promoting for people to move to Pittsburgh to get hired for them. And it's things like that, that don't really paint the full picture of what Pittsburgh is. And then, you have a whole bunch of people moving in, and et cetera, et cetera. Can get really, really layered and really, really deep on this topic. But I have to keep it real that, I love Pittsburgh. I put my city on my back, but we're not even close to being perfect or to what articles write about the city. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know much about Pittsburgh, so that's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
And then One Hood Media, what's that all about?
Yeah, totally. So One Hood Media is a nonprofit organization that focuses on really, a lot of different things. I think, to summarize, they bring arts and activism together. A lot of us who are in One Hood as One Hood artists, we consider ourselves artivists, combining that art and activism together. But One Hood does so much. When coronavirus hit, they focused on passing out PPE to specifically to Black folks who are on the front lines, healthcare workers, grocery store workers, etc. Um, and so, we talk about those topics, police brutality, we talk about gentrification, but like it really goes deeper than that. Right now they are focused on voting education and getting people out to register to vote. So they're really really focused on that right now. So yeah, we do a lot. Do a lot. A lot of people think One Hood is a record label. They are not a record
Okay.
label. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I should look into it a little bit more, but just from what I saw on your socials and on your website and in your music, I mean I could kind of tell that it was at least somewhat in the vein of activism, and I really like what you're doing with your music, and I think it's super powerful. And that kind of leads into the next thing that I wanted to talk about is you're standing up against the military industrial complex, because that to me is something that from a Canadian looking in at the States, like I see that as a thing that neither like people on neither side of the aisle want to step to that. So I feel like you stand the chance of isolating yourself by doing that and pissing off a lot of people. So I just I'd like to hear your story about what catalyzed you to make that stand, and also what you experienced and what you learned in doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. And and thank you for tuning into my music too. I think when we talk about service, people say thank you for your service or I served. I really had to at one point like analyze what that actually means. Um, and before I get too deep in, I never deployed, I never saw combat, and that was very purposeful. Um, but we talk about this word service, and everything that I consider service is not so much what the military considers service. And after looking up that word in dictionary and looking at my past, when I was 16 I was a volunteer firefighter and an EMT, things that I felt were like legit service, like I'm not getting paid for that, I am doing it because I want to help people. um, so I looked at everything that I did in those years, and I at this time, I think I did a total of 7.5 years in the military. And yeah, and at year probably 2.5, maybe 3, that's when I started to really, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, get woke. And look at, well, what exactly have I done that is considered service? What have I really given back? And, to that question, a lot of people will say, oh, well, you are putting your life on the line because if, our country gets attacked or if we face a threat, you're going to be the first one to be called. And as much as I understand, that thought process, um, you know, it hasn't happened at that, so
Yeah.
why, so how can you tell me thank you for my service? I just, to me, you know, I was analyzing everything. What does it mean to be a patriot? What does it mean to be proud of your country? What does it mean to be in the military? And I also looked at my experiences up to that point, and my experiences were traumatic. And a
In
lot
the
of people,
military, you mean?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And a lot of people, I think, view trauma in the military as you having to see combat to experience trauma. And it's just not the case. I can speak for hours on sexual harassment and sexual assault within the military, which is at an all-time high. Um, I can speak on that for hours, and as you've tuned into my music. I do speak on that in my music. But even putting that aside, even putting that trauma aside, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know everything, but I will say what I experienced in basic training alone. We're talking the first 3 months of you being in the military was traumatic, and a lot of veterans, like you said in the beginning, as you were phrasing the question, I risk, isolating myself. And I have definitely felt that. A lot of veterans have kind of come at my neck and have taken what I've said personally, mostly because they saw combat. And so now we have a trauma war of whose trauma was worse. And do you actually experience trauma in basic training? Well, of course you do. It's not normal. And I have to really slow this down for some people. It is not normal to be screamed at an inch away from your face by 4 drill instructors at the same time, and have all 4 of them saying different things and telling you to do different things that really are counteractive and hypocritical of each other. It's not normal. And we've
And
normalized it.
how old were you when this was like something you were living through?
I was 18. I actually had just graduated high school. 13 days after graduation, I was on a plane to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for basic training in the Army. Yeah. And that's another thing that I say too is think about your 17, 18-year-old self. You don't really have anything figured out. If anything, you are just starting on that path to finding yourself and finding who the true you is um, without those, outside influences, from your friends and teachers and classes and extracurricular activities. Um, and of course, I'm speaking on, the an American understanding. I'm actually, very ignorant to the setup, of Canada school structure. But you are at a very vulnerable point of your life at age 18, and to essentially sign your life away. That's a huge decision. So basically, all that to say is, um, I look at my 17-year-old self when I signed those papers, and I think about how much I didn't know. I think about how much the recruiter didn't tell me, how much teachers didn't tell me, guidance counselors didn't tell me. And I really hold them accountable because I was not able to make an informed decision because I didn't have all the information. So when I think of service now, I think of what better service for me to now inform students, both in high school and college, of my experience. And I just speak from my experience so that they can say, oh, and that can happen in the military. Okay. And they can take that information and do with it whatever they please. I just want students, especially Black youth, because they're targeted the most by recruiters, to be fully informed so that they can make a more informed decision about joining. That's really what it is.
That's that's such a good way of looking at it, that you're just literally explaining your experience, and that they can do what they will with it. But yeah, that's really powerful work to be stepping into that space and saying what you're saying. So good on you for that.
Yeah.
My
Thank
heart
you.
really goes out to you. I mean, Canada's definitely far from perfect, but yeah, it's pretty scary. I feel like I mean, I don't even want to make it like a Canada US thing, because we have our own like patriotic stuff and all that. But yeah, it's just a way of thinking that I definitely can't align myself with. So yeah, good on you for speaking the truth.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think even a little bit further maybe is, I'm assuming that this is along the same lines, but the simplistic ballistics pieces that you did, is that a full project?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I definitely would like to revisit. I felt like I left it in a very unfinished place. But yes, definitely related.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about what you were what you were trying to say with it, and the emotions and the ideas behind those pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, when it comes to military training in general, they even use this quote unquote themselves. They say this themselves. We break you down to build you back up. And when you think about that, I mean, let's just call it what it is. That's brainwashing. Um, and you become a yes person without questioning things. Um, and to not get into too much detail, two of my songs on my album speak about it. I had a friend who was deployed and witnessed some horrible things and was put through some horrible things. And he at one point had called me and was having a mental health crisis. Um, and he talked to me about seeing like legitimate bullets flying through the air, and how at that moment he realized that he was essentially trained to think of the enemy as anything but humans. And we always, I think, oftentimes now it's a phrase that is being thrown out a lot, is rehumanizing people. And when it comes to simplistic ballistics, it's kind of like a two-way approach for me. One was completely abstract, and I didn't even see what I was doing until someone else pointed it out. And then the rest of the series that was completed was after I realized that, after that person pointed the thing out to me. And that thing is, I was doing my larger pieces, my 6 foot, what was that? I'm sorry, 5 foot by 4 foot, and my 4 foot by 4 foot canvas. Um, I was just honestly just painting what I felt. I'm an abstract painter. It's just like kind of what I do. I don't really picture things. I just do it. And when a friend of mine saw it, they said, "Wow, it looks like rooms, like a map of a building, like a map of a room, and it looks like the color is almost like the walkthrough of what the soldiers would be doing to clear the room." And I, like, it was a very emotional point for me. I mean, this is 2017, and I was really starting the healing work of all of the trauma, and like, just starting therapy, just really starting to talk about my experiences, and finding community that, hears me out, regardless of the fact that I never saw combat. Um, and so it was very emotional for me, for my friend to point that out to me, because it's something that I did not even see that I was painting. And that's totally what it was. Um, so, kind of after that, and after thinking about my conversation with my friend, um, I just thought about, like, they simplify war so easily. People shoot at you, you shoot them back. You know, these people are the enemy. They did XYZ. You should hate these people because XYZ. Um, and they make it really simple. They make it really simple. They make it really easy to hate somebody else. They make it really easy to shoot a gun at another human being. And so I kind of took that and applied that together, and the term simplistic ballistics, came up, because really what I was doing, kind of looked like, um, an imaginary trail that a bullet leaves. You
Yeah.
don't actually see it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to going back and looking at those pieces again, and just with a fresh set of ideas and eyes. That'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just the fact that you're using your art for such powerful messages is really beautiful to see. Really
Hmm.
beautiful to see, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Something something maybe a little more lighthearted. Maybe it could be more lighthearted, but it could be heavy as well. Um, I still haven't finished my Singing the Bones course, but I know that we were both in it at the same time, and that's how I found out about you. You were talking about some stuff that you were seeing, and some dancing that could have ancestral roots, but possibly just by accident or by synchronicity or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would love to. I mean, I've only done like half the course, and I learned so many cool things, because I'm pretty cut off from my far ancestors,
Hmm.
and it was pretty. I had a couple really incredible moments, but I'd love to hear more about your journey through that and the things that you learned, because what you were talking about in the class that I saw was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I too, like had to leave the course like halfway or maybe, yeah, just because at that time, protests started and that kind of shifted to be my focus. But I'm actually in the second cohort right now of Singing the Bones. So yeah, I'm still learning and definitely am finding more things. But yeah, some of the really cool things that I found, my mother is an immigrant from Germany, and my father is Black, and there really wasn't much conversation around my Black roots growing up. If anything, there was definitely some symptoms of internalized racism happening in the house and within my entire family, to be real. And so, yeah, there wasn't too much talk about ancestors or, you know, where we believe, you know, our Black comes from, if you will. Um, and so I ended up getting a 23andMe test, which is something that like I was like not feeling, but then I was just like, I'm just going to do it. Um, and I found the majority of my Black ancestry. It seems like it's coming from West Africa and specifically Nigeria, um, Sierra Leone, and I started to like ask other people, like just like reaching out to aunts and uncles that I haven't talked to in years, and started getting like little bits and pieces of things that aligned with what my 23andMe was telling me. So for me, it was like, okay, this seems accurate. This seems like, I'm on the right track here. So yeah, I did a lot of research about, West Africa in general. And I personally, obviously, I love music. I love dance. I think, it's so easy to connect over. So I was checking out some videos, just on YouTube, just searching, getting into a little bit of a research hole, and found some traditional dances. And I started to make connections between those traditional dances and current, like trendy hip hop dances that are coming out now, and have been coming out since I was in middle school. Stanky leg and the whip and the nay nay, and I mean, like I could go on and on. I think it seems like um, there's a lot of connection between traditional, um, specifically I research West African, but traditional um, African dance and these like new, hip, popular dances that people are doing in the club, people are doing at their dance, at their school dance and stuff like that. So, yeah, I thought that was awesome.
So
And,
cool,
you
so
know,
cool.
it's like one of those things where like I wish I could directly reach out to the artist, and be like, hey, like, was this on purpose? Did this just happen like out of pure, coincidence? What's the story? Um, so, but yeah, those are maybe answers that I'll never get, but
Yeah, I
very
mean,
cool,
you could always just shoot him a DM and see what happens.
right? Yeah, I could
You could give that a shot.
totally.
Um, is there anything from the course that you think that you've taken that maybe isn't like a direct lesson, but maybe just something that you're feeling more comfortable within yourself, or whatever, that you've taken from ancestral work that you're bringing into your day-to-day life?
100%. I think, when I was little, I used to do really quote unquote weird things, and I didn't have the explanation for them then. I still don't really have the explanation for them now. One of those things is before it would rain. I'm talking about like I was little, like 4, maybe 5. Right before it would rain, I see the storm clouds coming in. I might hear some thunder in the distance or whatever. I'd go to the kitchen and fill a bowl up with water, and I would go outside and kind of dump the water, like down our steps. Like we lived on a hill, and I would dump the water down the steps, like almost as like an offering to the earth of like, you're about to like rain on us, here's water as well for me, and it was something that I completely kept secret from my family. Like if they ever walked in the kitchen while I was filling up the bowl, I would just dump the bowl out and like put it in the strainer, and like
No
I
way.
wasn't doing anything. Yeah, and like
What?
yeah, kept it very secret. Like I didn't want anybody to know that what I was doing, and for whatever reason, I probably because I couldn't explain what I was doing. And that's something that as I got older, I eventually stopped doing, because I was like, oh, this is weird. If someone caught me doing this, like I would get in trouble, which isn't even true. Because my parents aren't like that. But, you know, it's things like that where we would like, I feel like other people have mentioned similar things. Like, hey, I do this thing and I don't know why I do it, but I just, it feels right. Or I saw my grandma always sweeping the floor. Before she swept the floor, she would put salt on the floor, and things like that. I don't know why she does it or she did it, but now I do it. And I don't really have that explanation. So I started to just like, after the course was, after I had to bounce out of the course, I started to just do things that just felt right to me. Like if I want to go outside and dig a hole in the middle of my yard and watch it fill up with rain and then burn some incense or whatever, like if it feels right for me, I'm going to do it. Even if I don't have the meaning behind what that means, you know. So that's
So
definitely one
good.
thing that I've, stepped from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've kind of been doing similar stuff actually.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, just trusting my intuition a little bit more. I'm not someone who like innately has a super strong intuition, or if I did, it's been unlearned.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's helped bring me back for sure a little bit of to my
Yeah.
intuition, which has been pretty incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it has been.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything else that you'd like to share about the course, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the biggest things too that came up was there's this rush to we all have a draw to traditions and to culture. We love it. Like especially Americans. Like we're always trying to find something to connect to. And how they brought up, I don't know if you were there for it, but they brought up how everyone's just like, oh, I need to burn sage to cleanse my house or to cleanse my being. Um, and if you look into your ancestry and you can just trace it back just to a country, just to, it doesn't have to be specific. You can look into what are their cleansing ceremonies. And you will find things that are way more closely related to what your ancestors did that, essentially is the same purpose. It's the same thing, but they're using plants and herbs and rituals and traditions that spoke to them, that they had access to, in their indigenous space, in their land. So that for me, I mean, it really rang closely because, specifically for me, not so much sage for me, but I'm like a big like incense person, and I'm like, burning this like Indian temple incense, and like that has no connection to my ancestry at all. And like, yeah, it smells great, but like why am I using that? Why am I picking that over something else that maybe my ancestors used? And ultimately, me kind of stopping the use of those things that have no connection to my ancestry has felt amazing. Being able to find actual connection with those things has felt 10 times better, than just using what everybody else knows about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some something that sort of has been running in my mind, which is related to this, is I wonder if our like obsession with trends in our society is because we're grasping for traditions, and we're trying to find something that like deeply resonates,
100%. I definitely think that that's a huge part of it. I mean, like I even hear my parents and my aunts and uncles talking over, like a holiday dinner, talking about, oh, remember whenever we, used to wear these, and remember this. And, it's a point of, creating memories and creating connection too. It's like, it gets really, really deep when you talk about, the things that bring us together. And I totally think that that has a huge part to do with it.
Yeah.
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 I'm so glad to chat with you about this, because I bailed fairly early on in the course, and then I just started doing it by myself. But having someone to talk about this is really, really cool, and really,
For
really
sure.
interesting to hear your story as well. Um,
For sure.
I just have one last question for you, unless there's anything else you want to talk about for Singing the Bones. But I would just like to hear ultimately what impact you want to leave with your creativity, whether it be music or visual art or dancing or even activism, whatever, what the impact that you would like to leave would be.
Yeah. I think like it's a great question. Um, there's multiple things that come to mind. Um, I think the biggest thing is a quote that I'm gonna chop it up, even though I've known this quote since like sixth grade. Um, uh, the quote is something around the lines of, um, my biggest accomplishment would be if by the time I left the earth, the only thing they would say is she cared. And I think that that has been a positive thing and a negative thing in my life,
Yeah.
because I
So
have,
who is the quote?
I actually cannot remember.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
worry
no
about
worries. But and I definitely chopped it up a little bit. But
it. Okay.
I think about I think about how it's been a negative thing in my life of giving too much of myself to people, especially in relationships, just because I want the person to know that I care. So it has created a negative. It has a negative side, but I think ultimately, when I think about all of the little boxes that I'm in, and or circles rather, and I think about the impact that I want to leave, I really want to show people. I think like this may come off as cliche, because I feel like a lot of people might say this, but I really, really want to show people that when you lose your voice at any time in your life, whether if it's childhood, high school, early adult, later on in your life, like at any point, if you feel like you've lost your voice, if you feel like it was taken away from you, that you can reclaim it, and you can have that reclaiming process be not only a point of empowerment for you, but an empowerment for other people. My military experience really took away my voice. It it squashed what little voice I did have stepping out of high school. And it took me a couple years, several years, to recognize that and to start doing the work to regain my voice. But through regaining my voice and using it, there are so many people that reach out to me and they're just like, "Hey Brittney, like this album really did X for me," or "Hey, this song is what pushed me to get out of my abusive relationship." And those are things that, like, I don't, when I'm in the studio or when I'm writing these songs, I'm not like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna push somebody to get out of, an abusive relationship." Like, I'm not thinking those things. I'm just telling my story. But through telling my story and using the voice that I reclaimed, I'm empowering other people, and like, this can be said for many different mediums of art, not just music. But I think, through that, through my public speaking and talking about my military experience, I want people to know that there's going to be many, many times where people are going to try and take your voice away. And I'm not going to speak to you shouldn't let them, because that's easier said than done. But what I will speak to is that there's a point in time where you have to, like, recognize that your voice has been taken away from you, and you have to do the work to get it back, because it is so important, So I think overall that's the grand scheme of things of the impact that I want to leave.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's it's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Really, really powerful. I really, really enjoyed this interview and this chat. I really appreciate you taking the time and telling me what you're all about, and just the answers you gave to me were really beautiful. And yeah, I really look forward to sharing this with the rest of the world. I really do.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate you thinking of me and
Hey,
asking,
yeah,
and taking the time as well, because these are conversations that, who knows, someone could listen to this and feel empowered.
yeah. And
So.
that's the goal. That's the goal.
Mhm.
I wanna with this, I want to help artists just realize that, like, how deep their craft can go. I think there's a lot of people who are creating and not quite understanding how powerful they can be with their art. So that's one of the goals with this. Where can people get at you on social media? Yeah, let's say social media.
Yeah, totally. All of my social media is under Brittney Chantele. It's BrittneyChantele. And then my website as well, BrittneyChantele.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed
Thank
this.
you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed the interview. One of my big takeaways from the interview, something that I'm trying to input into my art as well, is kind of what we wrapped up with: empowering ourselves and using our voices, and really welcoming that empowerment into our craft. I think it's so important as artists that we really speak from a place of power when we create and share that with the world. I think so often in this world we're taught not to use our voices, and we're taught to be small, and we're taught to be quiet. And that's one of the most remarkable things about Brittney, and one of the things that I really took out of the conversation: how deeply we can use our art. Music doesn't just have to be a form of entertainment, it can be a vehicle in which we spread a message that we believe to be important. And I think that's something that's overlooked by a lot of people. And I think that if we all use our art to speak very deep truths, and if we really consider the message that we're spreading with the music that we're making, I think that the world will be a better place for it. That's it for the Conscious Creative for the week. I really hope you enjoyed the interview. I know I really did. And if you want to give me a follow on Instagram at MuseWorksAudio, I'm going to be posting a lot there, as well as my YouTube channel, which I'll have some links in the show notes. And other than that, if you want to subscribe, leave a review, it really helps me out. And that's it for the Conscious Creative for the week. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing this. And I'll be back next week. And until then, have a good week and take care.